They say that as we grow older, imagination starts to take the place of reason. Things we once called superstition or nonsense suddenly feel closer, easier to believe. I used to scoff at stories like that. Spirits? Fate? Visits from beyond the grave? Nonsense. Or so I thought. Until one winter night, in a lonely wooden cabin tucked deep in snow-covered woods, while the wind howled through the cracks in the door and shadows crept up the steps, I felt something my aging mind couldn't explain. A gentle push, a warm presence, a soft paw touching my heart from somewhere far beyond. And in that moment I understood, some bonds can never be broken, not even by death. This is my story, and Misty's, the little gray cat who changed my life and saved me in the most miraculous way. My name is George Mitchell. I'm 72 years old, living alone in a weathered old cabin on the outskirts of Portland, Oregon. The house, surrounded by towering pines and endless fields of wild grass, braves bitter winters and summers thick with the scent of resin. After my wife, Elaine, passed away from cancer, I sank into a long, silent loneliness, the kind that creeps into every moment, without making a sound. The days passed like shadows, measured only by the ticking of the wall clock and the fading light through dusty windows. One October afternoon, coming home from a quick trip to the grocery store, I heard a faint cry by the roadside. It was so soft, I almost mistook it for the rustle of leaves. But I paused, listening, and there it was again, a weak, persistent mew. Beneath the withered grass, I found a tiny, trembling creature, gray as mist, with deep blue eyes filled with desperate hope. A kitten, skin and bones, filthy and soaked from the cold autumn rain. It shook not just from the chill, but from exhaustion, a small life clinging to its final shred of hope. I knelt down, reached out. It didn't run. It simply looked up at me, with an expression I can only describe as trust, fragile and complete, as though it had decided to bet the rest of its tiny life on a complete stranger. I didn't think twice. I scooped it up, feeling its feather-light body against my chest, and carried it home. I named her Misty, after the morning mist her fur reminded me of. At first, Misty was painfully shy. She hid under chairs, behind curtains, under the table. I didn't force her. I understood. For such a small creature, the world must have seemed impossibly big and frightening. Each morning, I made coffee and placed a bowl of milk near her hiding spot. I would retreat, waiting silently. Some days she wouldn't come out at all. Other days, she'd sneak out, take a few cautious sips, then vanish like a whisper. But day by day, week by week, Misty grew braver. She started perching on the windowsill, watching me with curious eyes. Then one winter morning, as I sat reading the paper, she leapt onto the armchair and curled up beside my leg, purring softly. For the first time in years, my heart felt warm again. From that day on, Misty became my faithful companion. She followed me to the garden, lounged lazily in the summer sun, kept watch by the window whenever I left the house. On cold winter nights, while the wind rattled the old roof, Misty would nestle in my lap, her ears twitching at every creak and whisper outside. The house, once hollow and echoing with silence, came alive again, with the gentle sounds of paws on wood, soft breathing, and the simple joy of companionship. 5 years passed. Misty was no longer the scrawny kitten I'd found that rainy day. She was a part of my life, as essential as breath itself. But then I noticed the changes. Misty ate less. She slept more. Her once sleek fur grew rough and thin. Her bright blue eyes seemed to gaze at something far beyond this world. She no longer chased the sunbeams across the floor or danced along the window sills. Instead, she curled up quietly by the fireplace, breathing slowly, as if each breath was a decision. I grew worried. I took her to the vet, a kind young woman named Dr. Harris, who had cared for Misty over the years. After examining her carefully, Dr. Harris looked at me with gentle sorrow. "Misty's kidneys are failing," she said softly. "We can keep her comfortable, but she doesn't have much time, maybe a few weeks." The ground seemed to vanish beneath me. Even after losing Elaine, even after watching friends pass away, nothing had prepared me for this. Misty wasn't just a cat. She was the last warm thread connecting me to the world. In those final weeks, I never left Misty's side. I played soft classical music, the same tunes Elaine had once loved. I told Misty stories about our travels, our youthful follies, even silly little mishaps, like the time I set the kitchen on fire trying to cook Elaine's favorite stew. Misty didn't move much anymore. She would rest her head against my chest, purring so faintly it sounded like a breeze. I stroked her frail body, feeling every shallow breath, and silently begged time to slow down. On her last night, as the first snow fell against the window, Misty lay curled in my arms. She looked up at me, weak but clear, and gently nudged her head against my chin, one final loving gesture. I whispered to her, my voice shaking, "Thank you, Misty. Thank you for everything." And just like that, she slipped away. No struggle, no pain. Just a quiet extinguishing of a beautiful small flame. I wrapped her in an old knitted shawl, one Elaine had made, and buried her beneath the maple tree in the backyard. Snow drifted down, covering her little resting place in white. I stood there for a long time, until my feet went numb and my tears froze on my cheeks. The days that followed were darker than any winter before. The house fell into a silence so deep it pressed against my chest. I tried to keep busy, mending fences, chopping wood, but the emptiness was unshakable. I often wondered if I could bear to live on like this, alone, in a house full of memories. Then, strange things started to happen. The first night, I heard a soft scratching at the window. That same gentle, persistent scratch Misty used to make when she wanted to come inside. My heart pounded. I rushed to open the door, but there was nothing there, only snow and the quiet night. I told myself it was the wind, but deep inside, I knew better. Little things continued. The water bowl by the fireplace would be slightly moved, though I hadn't touched it. Sometimes ripples would dance across the surface of the water, as if something unseen had brushed against it. Once, in the afternoon sun, I saw, or thought I saw, a small gray shadow dart across the room, as quick and fleeting as a breath. I tried to reason it away. I told myself I was imagining things. But my heart knew Misty was still with me. And then came that night. One bitter March evening, Portland was gripped by an unexpected freeze. I went down to the basement to fetch more firewood. The stairs were slick with ice, and I slipped. I felt myself falling, helpless, headed straight for the unforgiving concrete floor. But just as I fell, I felt it. A soft push against my chest, not rough, not violent, just a firm, warm nudge, exactly the way Misty used to gently bump her head against me. The push sent me backward onto the steps, sparing me a brutal fall. Gasping for breath, I looked around. There was no one there. No wind, no animals. Only the faintest scent of Misty lingering in the cold air. From that night on, I no longer doubted. Misty had never left me. Her love, fragile yet unbreakable, still wrapped around me like a blanket. I still keep her water bowl by the window, not out of hope, but as a quiet ritual of remembrance. Each night, I talk to her, just as I would if she were curled up beside me, her eyes half closed in sleepy contentment. Sometimes, in the stillness, I feel a gentle brush against my ankle, or hear the softest sigh near my pillow. I don't question it. I simply welcome it, letting it fill the spaces Misty once warmed with her living presence. I tend the little garden around her resting place under the maple tree. Every flower that blooms is a conversation with her. I've found myself smiling more, not because the grief has vanished, but because I understand now, love like Misty's doesn't end. It lingers, soft and enduring, like the first light of morning slipping through the window. Misty taught me that. She didn't just save me from that fall in the basement. She saved me from falling into the darkness of loneliness itself. She showed me that the heart remembers what the eyes can no longer see, and that the bonds we build in love are stronger than the barriers between worlds. I still live in my old wooden house, among the pines and the wild grass. Winters are still harsh, and summers still sweet with pine-scented breezes, but I am no longer truly alone. Misty is here, in the whisper of the leaves, in the warmth of a quiet evening, in the unspoken promise that we are never really separated from those we love. Do you believe in miracles? I do. I have lived one. Her name was Misty, and she is the proof that love knows no boundaries. So I keep her bowl filled, tend her garden, and call her name with a smile. Because love, just like Misty, never truly leaves us. It stays forever in the heart.